Good evening. So good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the annual reorganizational meeting of the Board of Education. Today is Monday, July 10th, and this meeting is being held in the Board of Education room at the Main Street office of the Goshen Central School District. This meeting is also being live streamed over YouTube, accessible also via the district website. If everyone could please join me in rising for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Since this is the reorganization meeting and the Board of Education is now slated to make election and motion for new officers, I will open the floor at this time for. Oh, sorry. Skip right over it. So we also have the oath of office for newly elected board members. John Sullivan, our newest board member, will be sworn in first. So I will turn it over to Mrs. Farrell to do so. In here, right?
I, John Sullivan, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of board member according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations, sir. So now that all board members have been duly sworn in and properly sworn, I would open the floor for calls for nominations for the president of the Board of Education for the 23-24 school year.
I'd like to nominate Tom Loftus for president. I'd like to nominate Tom Loftus for president.
Any other nominations? Okay. So I will call for a vote then for Mr. Loftus for president of the Board of Education. All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Abstentions? Motion carries. Congratulations, Mr. Loftus. Mrs. Farrell will come forward and administer the oath. My moment of fame is over. I'll turn the meeting over to you.
Might be tapping you for some guidance. We have to read next.
I, Tom Loftus, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of President of Board of Education according to the best of my abilities. Thank you. So now we're going to move All right, thank you. And moving on to our next point of business, I'd like to call for nominations for the seat of Vice President for the Board of Education. So we have any nominations? All right. Personally, I'd like to nominate Brett Wheaton.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Brett Wheaton. Opposed? Abstained? All right. Got those. All right. Very good.
I, Brett Whedon, do solemnly swear that I'll support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and I'll faithfully discharge the duties of Vice President of the Board of Education according to the best of my ability. Thank you. Thank you.
Get everything in order. Good. Exec session comes next. This is it. Yeah. Perfect. We're getting there. We're almost there. Okay, 7 point. Right. Now we need a motion, right? Let's double check. All right, we need a motion for 7.1, motion to approve an appoint of certain district officials for the 2023-2024 school year. I have Shannon and Ashley. Be resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the appointment of certain district officials for the 2023-2024 school year. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I need a motion for item 7.2 to approve appointment of independent external auditor for the 2023-2024 school year. I have John and Shannon. Be resolved on the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the appointment of Nugent Hostler PC as independent external auditor at a fee of $31,250 for the 2023-2024 school year. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I need a motion for 7.3, motion to approve internal auditor firm for the 2023-2024 school year at Billy and Brett. Be resolved upon the recommendations of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the appointment of Cooper Arias LLP as internal auditor to perform updated risk assessments at a fee of $5,050 and testing based on an annual hourly rate as listed in their RFP for the 2023-2024 school year. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I need a motion for item 7.4 to approve appointment of broker of record for 2023-2024 school year. Billy and Ashley. Be resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the appointment of NYSIR and U.S. Employment Benefits Service Group as broker of record for the 2023-2024 school year. All those in favor? All those opposed? I need a motion for 7.5 to approve appoint of district physician for 2023-2024 school year. Brett, Billy. Be resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, Board of Education approves the appointment of Dr. Nicholas Velasco at a fee of $6,562.08 for the 2023-2024 school year. All those in favor? Opposed? Need a motion for item 7.6A. Yes. Okay. All right, just scanning this over real quick. Forgive me for pausing for a second. All right, for items 7.6A and 7.6B, we'll be assigning the OXPA delegates. Last year I was the OXPA delegate, so newcomers, honestly, it was a good opportunity to hear what's going on in the county, attending their monthly meeting and the presentations. Besides that, there was an annual meeting at the end of the year, which was also really nice. So if we have any takers on that. I did volunteer to be the alternate because it was pretty good. Any volunteers? John?
Yeah.
Before I volunteer to be the alternate, does anybody want to? You're still welcome to attend. It is a good thing.
Sure. Nope.
Okay, very good. All right, great. All right, back to item 7.6. I need a motion to approve appoint of the district voting delegate for Oxford for the 2023-2024 school year. All right, Shannon, Billy. Be resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the appointment of John Sullivan as the district's voting delegate for the Orange County School Boards Association for the 2023-2024 school year. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I need a motion for item 7.6B to approve the appointment of the district's alternate voting delegate for Oxford for the 2023-24 school year. Scott, John. Be resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the appointment of Tom Loftus as the district's alternate voting delegate for the Orange County School Board Association for the 2023-2024 school year. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. I need a motion for item 7.7 to approve the 2023-2024 designations. I have Brett and Ashley. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the following designations: official newspapers, official depositories, treasurer of deputy depository, treasurer of deputy treasurer as sole signer of checks, petty cash accounts, current mileage reimbursement rates, and substitute employment rates for the 2023-2024 school year. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Need a motion for item 7.8 to approve authorizations of the superintendent of schools. John and Ashley. Be resolved, the Board of Education approves authorizations of the superintendent of schools as presented for the 2023-2024 school year. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Yep. Okay, so 7.9 is for the district designee impartial hearing officer, and Dr. Putz's update. He said traditionally it is the board president. Everybody okay with that? All right. Thank you again. I need a motion for item 7.9 to approve appointment of district designee impartial hearing officer. Billy and Ashley. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the appointment of Tom Loftus as the district's designee to appoint an impartial hearing officer for the 2023-2024 school year. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I need a motion for item 7.10 to approve Capital Region BOCES communication specialist. And Ashley. Be resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education agrees to continue their contract with Capital Region BOCES for a Tier 4 enhanced communication specialist position, with the understanding that this position is eligible at the BOCES 8 rate. All those in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion for item 7.11 to approve acting principals resolutions. John, is that? Be resolved in the event that a school principal is not physically present in their respective school on one or more days or portions thereof during the 2023-2024 school year, that the following positions be appointed acting principal for all purposes, including short-term student discipline matters pursuant to section 3214 of the New York State Education Law. The principal, Goshen High School, We just reading through all of these now?
You can say yes.
Okay, very good. Just checking. As presented. It's a lot easier than trying to read this statement to everyone. All right. All those in favor? Opposed? All right. I need a motion for item 7.12 to approve the non-resident tuition rates. Ashley and Billy. Be resolved on the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education sets the non-residential tuition rates for the 2023-2024 school year as follows. Grades K through 6, $14,998 per year. Grades 7 through 12, $15,089 per year. All those in favor? Opposed? I need a motion for item 8 to approve readoption of policies in effect at the close of the previous year. Billy and John. Be resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the readoption of policies in effect at the close of the previous year. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, and I need a motion to close the reorganization portion of this meeting. I have John and Scott. All those in favor? Opposed? Great. The reorganization portion of the meeting is now closed. Just do that again in a minute. That's probably- All right, I'd like to now call to order the regular meeting of the Board of Education in the Central School District building on Monday, July 10th at 6:45. Meeting is called to order. Right. Yep. All right. Do we need a motion now to go to the exec? Yes. Okay. Yep. All right. I need a motion to go into executive session. Yes, thank you. With the intent to return to the business meeting shortly. I have Brett and Billy. Be resolved, the Board of Education will enter an executive session with the intent to reconvene the business portion of the meeting for discussions related to the employment history of a particular person or persons. Those in favor? Aye. Opposed? A motion to reconvene the business portion of our meeting. I have Brett and Shannon. All in favor? Opposed? All right. Moving on to our next agenda point, we have privilege of the floor. Do we have anyone signed up tonight? Oh, great. Okay, before we get into that, I'd like to just remind everyone, persons wishing to speak, first be recognized by the president, then identify themselves. Any group or organization wishing to address the board must identify a single spokesperson. Comments shall be brief and concise, generally not exceeding 3 minutes in length per speaker, which may be extended at the discretion of the board president. Speakers may comment on matters related to district business only. The board will not permit in public session discussions involving individual district personnel or students. Persons wishing to discuss matters involving individual district personnel or students should present their comments and/or concerns to the superintendent during regular business hours. All speakers are to conduct themselves in a civil manner. Obscene language, vivacious, libelous statements, threats of violence, statements advocating racial, religious, or other forms of prejudice will not be tolerated. Right? A little bit tongue-tied. We have one person signed up. Maria Darby. Please come on. And just push the button on your microphone, light will turn green, and you're live.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Board, and congratulations, President. Hi, my name is Maria Darby. I am aware that there's a time constraint for speakers on the floor, and I've done my best to stay within the 2 to 3 minute allotted time frame. I just respectfully ask that you do. Please don't cut me off if I slightly go over the 2 or 3 minutes. I've been practicing. So I wrote a letter, and I'll get to Ms. Farrell afterwards to distribute to the entire board as well. Dear Goshen Board of Education members, I'm here today to discuss a life-changing traumatic event that happened to my daughter at C.J. Hooker Middle School in April of this year. I will be brief as I know my time is limited, but please know that I will make myself available at a mutually agreed upon time to discuss it further. I'll start with sharing the definition of sexual assault, and according to RAIN, which is the Rape, Abuse, Incest National Network, quote, the term sexual assault refers to sexual contact or behavior that occurs without explicit consent of the victim. One form of sexual assault is fondling or unwanted sexual touching. On April 17, 2023, my daughter, who's here with me this evening, was sexually assaulted by another student while in gym class at C.J. Hooker Middle School. The student went by my daughter and fondled and grabbed her butt and actually cupped his hand and squeezed it. I immediately called the principal to tell her what happened. The initial reaction and response was satisfactory. I was told that this would be handled right away and I would be followed up with. I realize school can be unpredictable, so I think some things had happened that day. But I'm sure you'll all agree with something like this, you want it to be a priority. I had to reach out and follow up on a couple of occasions and was even told that, quote, drama could have something to do with said assault and could almost be embellishing it. What happened to my daughter is considered sexual assault. And I'm appalled at how the school handled the situation and investigation. They were dismissive and callous. This life-changing incident resulted in my daughter experiencing anxiety attacks when the boy who violated her body was returned to PE class, where the assault occurred with her or without me being informed of by the school. Myself nor my daughter's therapist were given the opportunity to prepare or address that she would need to face it in that same environment. Furthermore, her grades suffered in the last quarter drastically, and as a family unit, this has caused distress twofold. First being the incident, and then compounded by the school's minimizing and dismissal of the seriousness of this incident. I'm thoroughly disappointed in how the school handled this. I am here today asking for there to be change within the code of conduct, a section specifically about sexual assault and enforcement of the code. According to the Goshen Central School District rights, students have a right to learn in a safe environment, and sexual harassment is even listed as a prohibited student conduct. Why was this not enforced when it came to my daughter? I'm also asking that all staff and personnel have an understanding of sexual assault and the impact on one's mental health when affected by a traumatic event. It doesn't just go away. I've been wanting to say something to all of you. I wanted my daughter's voice heard. I didn't want her assault to be swept under the rug. My focus was getting my daughter through the day-to-day challenges she faced each day through the end of the school year. I am here today because I told my daughter that her voice will be heard and I will do whatever I can to promote change. I ask all of you to think about this. If this were to happen between staff at one of the schools or at your places of employment, wouldn't this be considered sexual harassment or sexual assault? Thank you all for your time. I'll give Mrs. Farrell letters for all of you to look at.
I don't know what to say. Say something.
I'm deeply sorry to hear about that. Thank you for sharing with us, bringing that to our attention. It's very brave of you to be here tonight and share that, so thank you. All right. Moving on with our agenda here. Yeah. President's report. We do not have a report to give tonight. This is night number 1. I'm sure I'll have one at the next meeting. Moving on to the legislative update. Talks about update. The next meeting will be September 6th, BOCES. Karen Meyer emailed me. We'll make sure that she has your contact information as well, John, so that you can receive those directly. There was also an email by Karen that she received from NISBA regarding a leadership in education event that's happening on July 28th and 29th up in Albany. So if anybody is interested in attending that, please check out the email, review it, and I guess let Maureen know if you're interested in attending. Moving on to our next agenda point, we have our superintendent's report, Dr. Curtis Coates.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. I'd first like to welcome Ms. Ashley Marquez. Ashley will be fulfilling a full year leave replacement in the math department at Goshen High School. And I just want to have her have an opportunity to introduce herself to the board, maybe just share a little bit about herself as she gets ready to come in and fill a full year leave in our math department. Ms. Marquez.
Thank you. My name is Ashley Marquez. Like you said, I'm taking a leave replacement in the high school. I just want to share a quick, brief educational background. I graduated from Mount St. Mary College with my bachelor's in mathematics, and then last year I graduated with my master's degree in secondary education. I'm really excited to be part of the Goshen community for this upcoming school year. Thank you.
Thank you for being here tonight. So I wanted to spend some time tonight just doing a summary evaluation of our goals and objectives from the 22-23 school year as we start to think about what could come next in the 23-24 school year, and just talk about some data points on where we stand. So Mr. Rediker, if you could get that up on the screen for me. Great. Mr. Rediker, I don't know if you mind just going right to the yellow highlights under each one. So first goal, we worked this year on creation of a district facilities plan, and I just want to talk about some of the actual steps that took place this year to try to achieve this goal. First and foremost, one of the major actionable points was creation of a community facilities advisory committee. As we know, we had a group of community volunteers that stood from the business community, from the educational community, those who did not have children in the school district, that took time over the course of almost 6 weeks to come in and view every one of the district facilities. They were in boiler rooms, they were on roofs, they saw fields, they really did see it all. And as you remember, next page, on April 11th, before the board adopted the 23-24 budget to propose to the community, the committee had an opportunity to present to the board. The board actually took some of the additional fund balance that was levied out to budget for this year, and we were able to increase our transfer to capital this year. Additionally, Land Associates was able to complete the mandated building condition survey. Those pieces have been submitted to New York State as part of a requirement to complete the BCS. We're also still moving forward to work towards using both the report from the Community Facilities Advisory Committee and the BCS from Land to help inform the creation of our 5-year plan. As I just mentioned, also the board took action in this year's approved budget to increase our transfer to capital monies from 1 million to 1.190400 for this year. We also were able to approve a $100,000 capital outlay money. As we know, we're using that in C.V. Hooker this summer to be able to abate several issues, whether it's flooring issues. That automatically gets repayment at a rate of 80% in the subsequent fiscal year on any capital outlay money. One of the things that we need to do is finalize this plan. I know we've been trying to work with other districts and look at some of the opportunities on what a meaningful 5-year plan would look like, rather than just checking a box to say that we did it for the purpose of meeting the state requirement. The board has made a commitment to trying to fund our facilities improvement and maintenance of our facilities on an ongoing basis. We want to make sure that any 5-year plan that we put in place is achievable, it stays within budget, and it's responsible to the community, ultimately putting the best facilities forward for the students of the district. Moving on to goal number 2, the creation of an action plan for the electrification of our bus fleet. So as we know, we've had ongoing conversations both at the table, and we've had board members get briefed on this during OXPA meetings throughout the year. This mandate, for lack of a better way to say it, is closing in on us quickly. We were hopeful that at some point the governor may look at the due dates and the timelines just as a benchmark again. We are looking at, for the 2027 school year, that it is required at this point that all of our new vehicle purchases that we make start to be electric vehicles, starting with our largest buses right on down to our smallest buses and vans at the same time, with a full transition to be done by 2035. It is a very, for lack of a better way to say it, it is a very, very, very ambitious goal. Additionally, what we did this year, we had a meeting here in the district office with our district architect, law enforcement, we had fire protection, we had all of our municipal partners in around the midpoint of the year. One of the recommendations that came directly from them was to go right to O&R, that they were having issues even opening the door with Orange and Rockland, start to have that conversation on whether or not the grid could handle the new demand on what would be coming from these electric vehicles. We were finally able to get some open information from O&R, and one of the things that O&R did say to us in writing was they will not meet with us unless we have a requisition for purchase of vehicles. They want to know what the demand load is going to be before they can even start to talk to you about upgrading your infrastructure. One of the challenges, just to be transparent, there's one district just outside of Albany that did a full capital improvement project on this, and as of right now, that capital project is sitting dormant because they can't charge the charging stations that they have installed. So there's a lot of backwards design going on here that we need to be very mindful of, but I just want to keep it on the board's attention that this is certainly sitting out there as a legislative mandate. This was approved as part of Governor Hochul's approved budget in 21-22. We need to keep this, in my recommendation, as part of our 5-year facilities plan, whether we continue to work incrementally towards steps to be ready for this. I would strongly recommend from an advocacy perspective that we really start to get to the legislature and the governor's office talking about some of the challenges that we are seeing. Just to keep in mind, Mrs. Wells has a quote for an electric bus for next year. On average, we pay anywhere from about $130 to $150 for a 66 passenger bus. Mrs. Wells, the quote for the electric bus full cost is?
305.
over 300,000. And there are a lot of limitations to those buses at the same time. One of the things that Mrs. Lamoran did find out, in terms of grant opportunities, we were not eligible prior to that. We have been moved to a high needs school district. Am I quoting that correct?
There's a different term, but very close to it, yes. You have to be within a half a mile of an area that qualifies for that, and apparently parts of Goshen.
So that may help us with some new grant opportunities. That's information that we recently received. But nevertheless, this is going to be an extremely costly endeavor. One that, like I said, the legislature and the governor have not let their foot, pardon the pun, off the accelerator, we'll say. I won't call it gas anymore. But it's something that we need to continue to work on and stay very mindful of. Our third goal, Mr. Reddick, if you don't mind scrolling down. One of the things that we had noticed, and this was in conversation with our district clerk, was that we were starting to experience some lag time, some errors, some real issues with the policy service that we were working on here in BOCES policy service. So we had made the recommendation earlier this year that the Board of Education see presentations from both the Area 1 BOCES policy service and the New York State School Board's policy service. After we received those presentations, as you may remember, we made the decision to move forward with the School Boards Association. We signed a contract with them. We've begun paying for their service. The policy committee within the Board of Education has begun its own review of making that transition as well, starting with a heavy hit, if you will, on the code of conduct, the district code of conduct. We've begun code of conduct meetings, allowing for stakeholders to come in, have an opportunity to review that as is required by state regulation as well. But we also are working with materials that NYSBA has shared to allow us to make a full transition of the policy book. Keep in mind, as you make that transition, there are going to be policies that fall off. There are going to be policies that are added. The NYSBA policy service has the tendency to be a little bit less legislative, if you will, so there are fewer policies in the NYSBA policy book. But the one thing that has been made clear from NYSBA, if there is anything localized within our policy, i.e. I'll use our facilities policy as an example. We were very methodical on how we put together the cost structure for use of our facilities. That is something that, as long as we tell them, they won't touch it. Food service policy, one that you're going to look at tonight, there were some localized pieces within the food service policy. They understand we won't touch those pieces. Otherwise, they will make blanket recommendations that on an ongoing basis, they will send you intermittent updates. When the policy committee meets, they can decide adopt in its entirety, modify and tweak, or reject in its entirety. But again, just keep in mind that they have a tendency to be, like I said, a little bit less bureaucratic, and they go to what the essentials are. Again, just recommended moving forward. We had a good start here. I think it will take the better part of the next year to be able to move forward with a full transition. But I think by the end of the next academic year, by the end of 23-24, as long as the policy committee maintains its regular meetings, we should be able to make that full transition. Again, these were our 3 goals for this year that I just wanted to review before we transition to the next topic. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Excuse me, were you allowed to ask questions?
Public health.
It's about the buses, it's just like an idea.
It's up to you.
Typically, we reserve the comments for public session. You're the only 2 here. I don't sense that it's gonna be a troublemaking question. So I think we should allow it for this evening.
So the buses, right,
Okay.
like, well, it's fine, I feel like you guys can hear me. How much,
The people at home can hear you.
how are people here?
You have to say who your name is.
Hi, my name is Max Winkler, Goshen alumni.
Push the button.
My name is Max Winkler, I'm a Goshen alumni. I just graduated 2 years ago now, but I was thinking about like the amount of money that you guys say you have to spend on buses. Are there any states around here that you might be able to sell the old buses to help pay for this? Cause then it makes it easier on the budget as a whole.
So the average, sorry, it's okay.
Yes.
The average bus has a lifespan of about 10 years, 200,000 miles. Am I right, Mrs. Wells? So given the time horizon, we're going to have to be real careful with our purchasing plan, pending that it moves forward on the timeline that's scripted. Usually what will happen, you have scrap yards, junk yards, you'll have other bus companies that drive shorter distances that will buy our buses at the end. So our goal is to run them out still as far as they can and then sell them at the end rather than selling the newer buses. That way we don't have to worry about, do they have to go to New Jersey, do they have to go to Pennsylvania, do they have to go to Ohio? We're able to get them closer to like a junkyard or a scrap yard.
I was making.
Good point.
Possible.
Good point.
All right, thank you very much. To you, Dr. Coates.
Any other thoughts or questions? And again, I would just invite the board, we should definitely start to plan on the goal setting process for the new year, so we can start to lay out our goals and objectives for the new year. Okay, also in your packet tonight that had been requested is a data comparison. So one of the conversations after we had onboarded, thank you, Mr. Barrett. One of the questions I had about after we had onboarded with Atlas Security was doing an apples to apples comparison, if you will. So I want to explain what is in your packet in front of you. This data is extracted, and you should have two grids, if you will. This data is extracted by building, both the middle school and the high school, for a 2-year comparison of March of 22 to June of 22, and then March of 23 to June of 23. If I look at the start date of Atlas Security, it was March 7th of 23. This is also split by building, so the first page on each chart are the number of infractions. The second page are the consequences, if you will, or what we call the disposition. So this is, the first page is the rule they broke. The second page, if you will, is the rule or the consequence that they got for breaking that rule. So you'll notice some key differences in the charts that you're looking at. Number one, you'll see some of the categories change from year to year. That is going to be due to a variety of different reasons. Number one, if a student didn't break a rule in that category in a year, it wouldn't extract any data. If the state changed any of the reporting categories, some of them might be combined, some of them might be disaggregated a little bit further. You will see those changes as well. You'll also notice if you look at the high school comparison from 21-22 to 22-23, that some of the dispositions were added. So in 21-22, they were not using the ALP room or the in-school suspension room. They added that back as a mechanism to try to keep students back in the building this year. Some things to keep in mind on both buildings. You've had administrative changes. You've had vastly different cohort sizes moving through. You've had decisions on types of ways to keep students in the building, as I just referenced. So there are some real definitive differences to keep in mind as you do a year-to-year comparison on each building. The other piece is, and I'm sorry I'm jumping around here. The other piece is that when you look at the data comparison from year to year also, we were also in a situation where students had just returned from COVID versus a quote unquote regular full-time in-school year. If you look at the high school, you don't see much change from year to year. The data is somewhat parallel, it's somewhat similar in my opinion. If we crunched deltas on a variety of these different categories, you might see a plus or minus 10%, but you're not going to see much more than that. If you look at the middle school, there is a pretty significant change from 22 to 23. That could be from, like I said, a variety of different reasons. We took some pretty proactive measures with looking at substance abuse. You know, there's a pretty definitive change 1 year to the next. I shared this data before our meeting with both of our principals and had some conversations. The one takeaway that I would like to share is both principals have very much appreciated the security aspect of having Atlas in their buildings, the supervision piece, the ability to look in their bathrooms, the ability to help patrol sidewalks. Both principals reiterated the same thing. One of the things that they're looking forward to going into the new year is hopefully a little bit more stability in staffing from Atlas. There's been some changeover as they sought to get our buildings fully staffed. We were very adamant with Atlas that we had wanted a female officer to be able to help us with a variety of different reasons. That was somewhat of a challenge for Atlas to get there, but overall, the feedback has been positive with them being in the building. I think as we progress more over time and we hit a level playing field with staffing with Atlas, it will be good to continually look back at this data, keeping in mind some of those variables that will come up over time. Glad to answer any questions, glad to address anything, but I just did want to get this data in your hands as was requested. And I figured the benchmark at the end of the year was a good place to try to align in the same.
Can I just ask one question about Atlas? So I know that one of the benefits was that if there was any difficulty with personnel, you could just have them not come back.
Yep.
Has that happened? Like how many, rough estimate, like people were asked not to come back?
I believe there's been 2 instances where they have removed officers, and it's been as easy as a conversation between the principal and Mrs. Lamarand is the facilitator with them. It's been a quick call, and they have been very, very, very responsive that way. They want to keep positive relationship with the school. And I believe it was more than 2 this year that we had that.
Sure.
Other questions?
Thank you for putting together the data. I think it's really helpful. And I like the idea of at certain intervals, we continue to look at the type of service they're providing to see how it's impacting the infractions, right? To see where it's working in areas where maybe we find we need a little bit more attention. So this is well put together. Thank you.
Other questions? Okay. Finally, I wanted to talk about construction a little bit. As you know, the project at Goshen Avenue continues to move forward. When the building was vacated for the summer, it allowed for construction to speed up. We had a online meeting this past week with Orange and Rockland, which was one of our major concerns about the update of the transformer that was needed to be able to power the new equipment. There was some question of the proper size of transformer that might be needed to power the new equipment. Orange and Rockland will be bringing in a 300 kilowatt, kilowatt, a 300 kilowatt transformer within the next couple of weeks. There will be a period of downtime that exists that will have to shut the building down for power for them to be able to make that transition. One of the things that we'll have to look forward to in the future, so we have 2 large spaces that were not completed in this project for air conditioning. The cafeteria and the gymnasium. If we choose to move forward to putting air conditioning in either one of those spaces moving forward, we'll have to do another upgrade to the transformer. So Orange and Rockland, based on their engineering, feels confident that the equipment that is being installed will be powered by that 300 kilowatt transformer that will happen before the end of the summer. Otherwise, all of the work progresses daily. There's been very little negative feedback, if any at all. I think that the contractors have been quite good. They've been diligent. The plumbing, the electrical, everything has been going very, very well to that extent. Starting tomorrow at CJ Hooker, the abatement will begin on 3 of the classrooms that we've had significant flooring issues with. Once that abatement is done, it'll be primarily led by one of our maintenance people to go and reinstall the new flooring. Just keep in mind, one of the things that we talk about on an ongoing basis with CJ Hooker is just about anything that you touch is going to require abatement. So if we can leave that $100,000 capital outlay and continue to move section to section on making those improvements summer after summer, it will allow us to begin to modernize the building and update some of those things that are very much outdated. Some of the other issues, we're only talking about flooring right now. You can't screw into the walls, you can't touch the ceilings, you know, that building unfortunately has a lot of asbestos in it. But any of the minor upgrades that we can make certainly are going to be positive and will help us to be able to continue to keep the building in good shape. The last part of construction, I had a quick opportunity to speak with Lam. The design is almost done already for the GIS roof. As soon as that design is done, that will be submitted up to the State Education Department for approval. Because it is only a roof, approval goes typically very quick for roofs. Our goal is still to get through approval and have that ready to be able to be done by the spring of '24, similar to what we did this year with Scotchtown, to have that roof completely refurbished. As a reminder, we were able to go towards refurbishment based on the thermal scans that we did. And even within those thermal scans, we were concerned because parts of that roof had been leaking for so long that we were going to be subject to replacement rather than refurbishment. The scans indicated that the amount of repair that they'll have to do is minimal. We should be well within budget to do the full refurbishment of that roof. I'll pause there, I'll take any questions, and then I can go back to the summer program and do Mr. Carter's report again later.
So it's the temporary fix for the roof at the gym?
So Mr. Freeze, the contractor's been in, and as far as we know, the leak at the GIS roof has been temporarily addressed until we have the refurbishment done.
We have plans to bring it in, but
Okay.
the weather, we expect to have the roof temporarily taken care of by the end of the summer.
Great, thank you. Other questions? Very good, right?
Right. Thank you, Dr. Coates. Now we'll be moving on to the Assistant Superintendent for Business Report, Mrs. Ray Van Huffenreich.
Thank you. Tonight, I just wanted to go over, I don't know if you had a chance to read the memo regarding the school lunch prices. Alan Molnickel is our Director of Services, and he is making a request that we consider an increase. This year was the first year that we returned paid lunches. Prior to this, during the pandemic, we were being reimbursed for all meals. So in other words, we would get reimbursed from the state and federal government for our lunches and our breakfast, all meals, so everybody ate for free. And we ended up with a profit due to that increase in revenue of $354,000, but we've had to appropriate that profit for the current year, 22-23 that just ended, and now 23-24 to help offset the budget or the loss of revenue and the increase in food and supplies. So we suffered a loss in 22-23 totaling $77,850, and Al is asking for an increase of 15 cents for lunches in the elementary and GIS level, and then the middle school and high school he would like to increase by 10 cents. And leave breakfast alone, but just increase the school lunches. So that's something you would consider. And also to give you an idea, our average daily participation during the free meals, which we were getting for the last 2 years, was 1,591 meals per day. And now we're down to 1,396, so you can see that's a disparity between those 2 years. So that's why we are down and quickly, unfortunately. So we would like to add that as an agenda item, if you would consider it, and in the future meeting. If anybody has any questions?
So thank you for that presentation. So looking at the dollars and cents, it looks like they're raised by 2 different percentages. So in one level, you're raising it by over 5%, the other one you're raising it by over 3%. So my question is, why aren't we raising it to one flat percentage rate for everyone? Why is there a difference between grade levels?
So I asked that question of Mr. Mullins because he has looked at other districts to see where we fall within the range, and that is why he has a difference in that amount. Because I'm used to seeing it raise the same as well. I don't have that exact data with me, but I could get that. likely to bring it to see what others are charging. County.
I mean, I was curious to know if it was, it sounds like it's based on other school districts. I didn't know if it was just because it made even the set charge $3.10 and $3, or, you know, there's a number here where it says it's gonna increase the total by a certain dollar amount. And if you generate it by the same percentage, perhaps you even maybe decrease the delta of the loss by even more. If it's, say, a flat 4% for everyone, or something, you know, or maybe even it. I don't know how the community or the board feels about charging more for a certain grade level unless you get more food. I'm just trying to think on an equity level.
Does the food program typically operate at a deficit?
It has in the past, yes. The general fund is supposed to make up that deficit. The school lunch program is not supposed to stay in a deficit, so eventually we will have to increase our transfer line in the general fund budget to offset this deficit.
Do you have an idea of what percentage of growth this deficit is compared to prior years? It just seems like a huge number. I know there's rapid inflation, you know, over the last
Right, I would have to
short history, but I just was curious to miss by this much seems like.
I know it's a huge delta
Yeah.
because we went from a profit of 350,000
Exactly. So really,
to
$100,000 just seems like a lot.
yeah, I will have to do some digging to check on that, to see what the loss has been in prior years. I think so. CPI increase really did us in, as well as the free and reduced, or free meals, because everybody was free, not paid, so.
Thank you.
The free meals over the last couple of years definitely threw a dent in the books. As wonderful as it was to have that revenue, it was all artificial, and now we're paying the price for that. Pre-COVID, the meal program was close to breaking even. We didn't see numbers like this, but we can do the data digging and get that historical previous look back before you just see it.
Good question. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Now we'll be moving on to the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction, Personnel and Technology Report. Oops.
Thank you. So the only last piece that I wanted to give an update on, we talked about the school discipline, is our summer academy. So on July 3rd, we were able, in grades K through 12, to begin our summer academy. Earlier in the school year, based on teacher recommendation and some of the data look back that our teachers had an opportunity to do with our building administrators, we were able to invite several hundred students to be able to attend our summer academy. This week, they were able to administer the MAPS benchmark just to get a baseline for those students to measure growth over time with some of the activities and the baseline activities that the students will be completing throughout the summer. The one thing that I stress to all of our families, there's no homework. This is not regular school. You're not coming in to take tests and quizzes. This is really geared for staff to be able to look at where potentially some of the gaps were for the students that have been identified to attend, to be able, at least number one, to stabilize, or number two, to increase their proficiency as they prepare to go into the new school year. We have not refused any families. If families asked for their children to attend, we've had good conversations with them about what the program is or is not. We provide transportation. Mr. Molnickel is providing morning snacks for the students when they come in, juice, muffins, and fruit at the same time. I will tell you, holistically, I've been in both buildings during the first week, and the atmosphere is very positive. Many of the students are very excited. One of our teaching assistants, Mrs. Fixon, has had a regular over the last 2 days that cries when he has to go home. So that's a good sign. It means that our staff is doing a good job under difficult circumstances for our students that are coming in for a summer program when otherwise they could be at day camp or somewhere else to make it a fun but engaging experience. I want to give a special thank you to Mrs. Wells in transportation as well. They were able to modify all the routes. For the first time, we are supporting families this year with doing a drop off at the camp. Well, until this year at Goshen camp, until they went underwater because of the rain. But we are trying to support our families to the best of our ability for the summer program that will last through mid-August. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you very much. Moving on to the next portion of the meeting. Right, I need a motion to approve the consent agenda. Billy and Shannon. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendents of schools, Board of Education accepts the retirement of Robin Weimers, a school bus driver, effective July 15th, 2023. Ms. Weimers has been with the district for 17 years. Be it further resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the remainder of the consent agenda as presented. In favor? Opposed? I need a motion for 10.1, business policy, second reading and readoption. I have Brett and Ashley. Be resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the second reading and readoption of the following policies. Policy 5660, school food service program, lunch and breakfast. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Moving on to new business, point number 11.1. I need a motion to approve the minutes. Shannon and Scott. Be resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the minutes of the June 26, 2023 regular board meeting. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? I need a motion for 11.2, entry of 2023 Goshen High School graduates. I have John and Shannon. Be resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the entry of the names of the 2023 graduates into the Board of Education minutes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I need a motion for 11.3, ratify supplemental memorandum of agreements with the GTA. John and Billy. Be resolved that the Board of Education hereby ratifies 2 supplemental memorandum of agreements between the Goshen Central School District and the Goshen Teachers Association dated July 10, 2023. One regarding summer technology support provided by a GTA member, and one regarding the career internship facilitator. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I need a motion for 11.4, vote on NISBA Area 9 Director. Shannon and Brett. Be resolved that the Goshen Central School District Board of Education nominates John Redmond as Area 9 Director of NISBA for a 2-year term effective January 1st, 2024. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I need a motion for 11.5, adoption of new elementary reading literacy program, scholastic literacy program. Ashley and Scott. Be resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education adopts the scholastic literacy program for use in kindergarten through grade 6 for instructional alignment with the next generation English language arts learning standards. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I need a motion for 11.6, accept letter of municipal advisor services. Billy and Shannon. Be resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education accept the letter of municipal advisor services from Bernard P. Donegan, Inc. to provide financial services to the district according to the terms of the letter. All those in favor? Opposed? Mrs. Simpson's there. Sorry about that. So back to 11.6. Be it further resolved, the Board of Education authorizes the superintendent to execute the letter. All those in favor of that additional sentence?
Aye.
Fantastic. All right. All right. Do we have any additional privilege of the floor? There's nobody. No. All that. No one's there. Excellent. All right. Board member issues, comments, and committee reports. So maybe we'll start with a quick committee report on policy. We had a great meeting last 2 weeks ago. Students showed up. Really big thank you to all the students out there. Maybe 1 or 2 of you listened. That would be great. Kids did a fantastic job. They came and shared and participated in roundtable discussion. Mr. Carter did a really nice job moderating that discussion. We're moving deep through the code of conduct right now and have another meeting, I believe, this Wednesday coming up on the policy committee. So that's moving forward. Any other committee updates or board member comments?
When do you think that policy will be finished?
So the goal was that the code of conduct portion would be set by the start of the new school year. And I believe the projection on the full policy audit was a 1.5 to a 2-year full process. It's every single section of the policy gets reviewed, updated, and adopted.
I think we've made some great progress on the code of conduct at the last few meetings, so I do think that that will be done towards the end of the summer in preparation for the start of the upcoming school year. So it's going really well.
That's the goal. The parents also who've been volunteering, thanks to them as well. They've been doing a really fantastic job, giving great feedback, digging into the district level code of conduct and all the building level code of conduct as well. It's been going very smooth. All right, another item, we just wanted to jump to our committees. I think we have a few spots that we need to fill. We have a few different committees here: technology, safety, facilities, audit, policy, procedure, NISPA, OXPA, and negotiations. Dr. Coates, maybe if you don't mind just giving a quick bullet point of what those committees do, and then we can go ahead and fill in the gaps.
Sure. Can I steal?
Absolutely.
Stand test.
Yes.
So technology usually means biannually and reviews hardware and software in the district. That piece is more informative than anything else. The deeper conversation really focuses around district infrastructure, and in many ways, IT security has been a big one that we've discussed at committee. Safety and facilities, while it is one committee, typically has divided into almost 2 different meetings now. Safety, we have looked at conversations on personnel, we've looked at pieces on how we properly secure the buildings, we've looked at pieces like the SRO contract, where facilities is more focused on physical upgrades to the building. Things like roofs, things like paving, things like boilers. Are we getting in line for a capital project? That they have looked down the runway, if you will, on making sure that we are moving in a good direction. The audit committee is probably the most exciting committee that you would ever want to attend. So typically the audit committee meets with the internal and the external auditor. They'll come in just prior to a board meeting regularly. They'll give updates on whatever they have dug into based on the board's direction, and they're typically pretty quick committee meetings, to say the least. And 100 times out of 100, the assistant superintendent will afford to do that information ahead of time, just so you know what you're coming into. Policy is one of the busiest committees right now, especially with doing a full policy review. Typically, the policy committee would really only meet quarterly once the full update is done. But right now, it's meeting far more regularly to be able to get the code of conduct done and the transition to the new policy book. And finally, the negotiations committee will be a busy one this year, as we're moving into a year where all 3 of our bargaining units will be up for negotiations starting fall. Decisions are made based on what are the priorities going into negotiations, what's the format going to be, how are we going to be handling negotiations with bargaining units as we get ready to meet.
All right, thank you for that. And we have a little bit more insight. We see who can we pull into some of these committees. So I'll just run down the list real quick and just see if there's any changes we need to make. On technology, we have Billy, Scott, and Brett. Are you good with that?
Yep.
All right, great. Safety facility, we have Tom, Scott, and Brett. That. All right, audit, Billy, Shannon, and Ashley.
Yes.
All right, very good. The exciting one, audit. All right, policy, that's where we have an opening. Allison has the open slot, so we have Ashley and myself on that. Policy. All right. John, we got you on 2 items so far. There might be one more spot for you. All right, great. NISBA, we have Shannon and myself. Adults,
You don't have to have three. Just remember, on any given committee, while you do have three, you don't have to have three. And NISBA is
so
typically
these two.
your primary and then your alternate, similar to Oxford.
Okay. Does anybody want to take the alternate for NISBA? Take myself off of that one. Okay, great. All right, Oxbow, we decided earlier, we have the update already. John and myself, we're good with that. And negotiations, we have Shannon, Ashley, and Scott. Great, all right. Good, thank you. Any other board member comments? All right, I just had a couple of quick things that I noted here. Maureen, if you don't mind, can you send over the board member handbook that we started drafting to all the players? Sure. Now that we have everybody on board, I think it'd be a good time to take a look at it. And also, if we don't mind following up with the with our NISBA project manager, getting a cross-reference guide for our policy. I think it will be helpful as we wind down on code of conduct. I think it'll be great if we start jumping into some of those general sections, knocking out some of those. Maybe we could start getting that lined up for the tail end of the summer here. And lastly, we spoke about some board member training. So I think it would be really fantastic if we could schedule a date sometime in these summer months with the same theme that we had last year. Everybody found that to be very informative.
I can reach out to them again, Ken Mitchell and Susan Wall.
All right, yeah, that would be great. Should we shoot for maybe August-ish?
Sure.
Does that work? Anybody have any major conflicts in August? Would early to mid-August work generally?
No, we're late.
Late August? Okay,
I'm
just stay away
away
from
as well.
stay away from
I'm
late
away about
August.
2.5 weeks, so I can share those dates.
Okay. All right, great. So we'll try to find something collectively in August.
I just wanna make sure I can get them on.
Yeah, that would be great. Okay, sounds good. All right, any other board member comments?
Did we want to talk about possibly moving up the discussion about board member comments and committee meetings to earlier in the meeting?
We did.
Right?
Yes, that's a great recommendation. So just to hear everybody's opinion about it, officially, we had discussed moving the committee reports from point number 13 on the agenda and moving it up to somewhere around number between 0.5 and 6. That way, folks at home tuning in might want to hear an update on the policy committee specifically, or the safety committee, or audit committee, the exciting one. What are the thoughts on moving the committee reports up to the front of the meeting?
I think it's a good idea. We can see how it works and, we find out it's not, we can have a good discussion about it and
Back down?
bump it back down, so.
Sounds good. Great, so I think we'll take note of that next time around. It'll be, I guess, 0.5B. Right? Any other comments? Good. All right, great. All right, so moving on to our last point. Executive session, I need a motion for executive session. John, Ashley? Yep. Be resolved, the Board of Education will enter into executive session with the intent not to reconvene the business portion of the meeting for discussions related to employment history of a particular person or persons. All those in favor? Opposed?